friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back, Going In Raw News Brief. We're going to try to keep this one brief today, but hey, hit that like button. Let's try to get up to 600 likes. Larson, what's in the news?
Well, we talked a bit about it last night during our Raw recap because late last night, WWE announced that a Performance Center trainee had tested positive for COVID-19. The news was first reported by Ryan Satin, and WWE later issued a statement which read, quote, "A developmental talent who was last on site at WWE's training facility on Tuesday, June 9th, has tested positive for COVID-19. Since that time, no other individuals that attended the facility have reported symptoms. However, out of an abundance of caution and to ensure the health and safety of the company's performers and staff, all talent, production crew, employees on site at the training production facilities will be tested for COVID-19 immediately. Following the test results, WWE plans to proceed with its normal television production schedule." Shortly after that, John Pollock of Post Wrestling reported that, quote, "Due to the positive case, the company will be testing talent and staff for COVID-19 on Tuesday with a plan to resume its tapings on Wednesday." Post Wrestling confirmed with multiple sources that Tuesday tapings were postponed. I guess the idea was they're going to tape Raw, SmackDown, main event, I guess, for next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything for main roster stuff had been already filmed yesterday.
Right.
According to Sean Ross Sapp, WWE didn't give talent any advance warning that someone at the PC tested positive, tweeting out, quote, "Talent I've spoken to say they found out about the positive COVID-19 test when the rest of the world did. Last time they were informed," of course, there was a positive test in early April that was announced. "Last time they were informed via Talent Relations app about 5 days before news broke." And then Wrestling Observer's Brian Alvarez reported that, quote, "On top of nobody finding out about the COVID failure until it hit social media, I was told by multiple sources that WWE would not allow anyone in the crowd at the Raw taping Monday to wear a mask." That was later disputed. We'll get to that later. Let's talk about this crowd. So you may have noticed there were people in the crowd who didn't seem like they were Performance Center trainees.
No, it was weird because like all the Performance Center trainees, they're like, young and they look vibrant and they're all like energy. And then like yesterday we're watching Raw, they like panned over and there was like an old dude like cheering. He looked like he was having a lot of fun.
Yeah, he was having fun.
Turns out they had invited some fans to come out.
Yes. So wrestling. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Larson, wasn't it just last weekend that somebody in the WWE said this? I'm trying to remember who it was. "So we need to do what we're being told by the medical experts. Once that widespread testing that is accurate becomes available, we will do so." That was Triple H when he was asked. When he was asked about COVID testing during his In Your House Takeover media call. Yeah. That quote, by the way, was via Sportskeeda.
Yeah.
So, or evidently until somebody actually tests positive, and then we're going to start testing.
Like many things at WWE, they will eventually do the right thing when their hand is forced.
Yeah, pretty much.
So apparently, Mojo posted video of the giant Q-tip going up his nose.
No, he did.
Today.
That's the worst.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, poor guy.
So it looks like WWE is finally, for the first time in 3 months, in the midst of a pandemic, actually doing COVID testing for their talents and staff and whatnot. Back to the crowd, Wrestling Inc. is reporting that some in the crowd were local diehard fans, while others were friends and families of the wrestlers.
Diehard. That puts a whole new spin on that one, man.
That's their verbiage, and that all of them had to sign waivers which stated that they wouldn't hold WWE liable if they contracted COVID, and they were subject to the same screening procedures WWE has had in place since they started running shows at Performance Center. So that means taking their temperature.
Yeah, you have to sign a similar waiver if you want to go to a political rally these days too.
Yeah. Louis Stangor of Wrestle Talk reported that WWE talent apparently were unaware that there be any fans, whether they were fans or friends and family. That's also been kind of disputed somewhat. Were at the PC until they got there. So shortly before we started rolling cameras, John Alba of Orlando's Spectrum News 13 tweeted out some more information. He's saying, quote, multiple fans in attendance at Monday's WWE tapings tell me they were not told they couldn't wear masks. Several reports in the last 24 hours have indicated they were told they couldn't wear them, and then posted this statement that WB provided to them, which is really small. This is what WB had to say.
I'll read this one.
Thank you. A much larger monitor than I do.
Yeah. Fans have not been in attendance at WWE events since March 13th. Yesterday, a select number of friends and family were permitted to attend WWE's TV production. These individuals were required to participate in medical screenings prior to entering the closed set at our training facility and were kept apart from in-ring performers and production personnel. Attendance was below 20% capacity, and social distancing guidelines were adhered to with at least 6 feet between parties. That's untrue. You could see that on TV. Thus, face masks were not required.
Alba has more, saying, quote, "The fans I spoke to told me they never felt pressured by WWE not to wear a mask for TV purposes or any other reasons. They confirmed temperature checks and signed waivers as well. One noted they were in a group that had masks on them and chose not to wear when taping started. He also says those I spoke to didn't find out about the positive COVID-19 test by WWE developmental talent until after the tapings. While WWE personnel were tested today, the fans were not informed they had to get tested. Mm-hmm. Those I spoke to were invited back for more tapings this week."
Yeah.
There's one question in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, when did WWE find out that one of their developmental talents tested positive? If it was at any point before this taping began, damn them, because they potentially exposed a lot of people. I understand that Triple H has gone on about the sanitizing procedures they have done at the Performance Center, where they'll sanitize the ropes, change the ring mats. Also in Alba's reporting, there's mention of sanitation stations throughout the Performance Center, and that's fine. I understand they're taking precautions, but to allow the TV taping to go on as scheduled and then dump the news after the show had aired, with the potential of exposing talent, staff, production, friends and family of talent to this virus and not saying anything about it until the taping was over, that's awful. That is awful. It's I don't know, it's irksome. It's another instance where WWE makes it real hard as a fan of wrestling to watch their product. Assuming they knew about this before the taping happened. It's entirely possible that they started on the taping thing. In the course of that, they found out about it, issued the statement immediately. That's entirely possible. But if it's a situation where they knew about it in advance and said, well, we got to get this done, otherwise we have no TV this week, that's really irresponsible.
Yeah, we don't know, so I'm not going to speculate on that.
We don't know at all.
I'm not going to judge that situation because we just don't know. I mean, they don't have a good track record. I mean, and I'm not even going to qualify that with another clause to that sentence.
And that's why the first thing that pops in my head was like, when did they find out? When did they find out about this?
They don't, going back decades. They don't have a good track record. Period. So, I mean, I qualify that by saying of keeping their talent safe. Even when we talk about what we did yesterday with the pending lawsuit and the confidential witness, former wrestler for WWE, when the WWE issued a statement that said, the allegations being, bandied about by the news, by the dirt sheets are laughable when, I mean, there's a credible witness that was there that, gave a deposition.
The reports,
under oath. I believe those things are under oath.
Guess so.
I would think. So yeah, the armed guards and the hostage situation was a true story, the way that it was described anonymously by several wrestlers in attendance months ago. They're not credible. WWE's not. It's not credible with how they handle their talent in many, many, many different ways. And I would not hold it against the WWE talent en masse to just like walk and be like, hey, this needs to be handled properly. I mean, it's not like this is like, it's not like this is a biological bomb and like there's thousands of people that are going to be. This is a serious thing that they're not taking seriously.
Yes.
And as fans of the product, I'd like to know that the performers, it's dangerous enough being in the ring performing moves. I mean, as we saw with Edge, who by the way, we didn't even mention this, that apparently Edge's injury, this was from Dave Meltzer, Edge's injury happened on a retake.
Yep.
And he heard that it might have been when Edge came off the top and took an RKO. They refilmed that. They went through the match and they did a series of retakes.
They did some pickups, yeah.
To enhance, the product.
Enhance visuals, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, they already go through one, I don't know how long the match was, 35 minutes or whatever. And they go through and they do more stuff. Well, I don't know that wrestlers are necessarily, especially a guy who's been out for 9 years, are accustomed to that. They just don't take that stuff into consideration. Now, Edge was probably like, okay, yeah, I'm fine, with the risk involved, because he's a professional and he's going to, Edge has done plenty in his career to sacrifice his body to put on the best show. And he's a grown ass man. If he wanted to say no, I'm sure he could have said no.
Yeah.
But it's just the WWE, they don't have a great track record.
They don't. And that's why, when I mentioned earlier that if possibility exists, that they knew in advance and this is how they proceeded. A lot of that is informed by past behavior. Because...
Well, I guess what you're saying is you wouldn't put it past them. Like,
exactly.
It's entirely possible because they're capable of it.
Yes. I would hope that is not the case. I would hope that the second situation I mentioned where they were doing the tapings, in the course of the tapings, they found out this was the case, and they just kind of made a judgment call. Well, everybody's already here, so let's finish up.
I mean, it's one thing, like, it's not good at all to put your wrestler, like, especially like Daniel Bryan, like Brie Bella has said that she has concerns because he has a compromised immune system. It's one thing to put your wrestlers at risk with this kind of thing. It's another thing to have your developmental talent on the other side of that plexiglass, where evidently this person would have been. They're obviously not like, look, man, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you can see clearly they're not actually 6 feet apart from each other. And then, but on top of that, to have fans come in, that is,
the more people you put in that building, the more risk you're putting everybody in.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can say you're 20% of capacity, you're within guidelines. Just because by the letter of regulations or law, whatever, you're on the up and up doesn't necessarily mean that's the right approach to things. It's just, I don't know. It's I want to assume that WWE is taking at least it's taken some sense of precautions to ensure the safety of everybody in that building. And then when presented with the situation where the safety of those in that building could be jeopardized, they don't just push ahead anyways. That's what I want to think. But as we just said, history has indicated that WWE hasn't always operated with the health and safety of their performers first and foremost in their mind. I would like to assume that they didn't know in advance of this taping that someone tested positive. I would like for that to be the case. I hope that's the case, because I don't want to be sitting here and thinking, well, this company whose product I watch, who historically I've enjoyed, continually, here's another instance of it, put people's safety and health in jeopardy just to carry on with the show. Because if that's the case, it's upsetting. It's really upsetting.
Yep. Sure.
Anyways, Tom Collahue has some more. He's reporting that since the talent who tested positive for COVID-19 was tested independently outside of WWE, since until today they actually haven't tested anybody, that, quote, this has made many people backstage very nervous about returning to work on Wednesday. While on TV talent and developmental talent in the crowd are separated, a number of WWE superstars would apparently mingle with their friends during segments and backstage. It's a nervous feeling across the WWE locker room at the moment. And he continues, quote, the intention is to go back to work tomorrow with anyone confirmed as having COVID-19 self-isolating off-site. Here's potential issues. So the individual who tested positive tested was last there June 9th, 1 week ago. We know the incubation period for this thing can last as long as 2 weeks. Now, I don't know at what point during the incubation period where the viral load is high enough that a positive test would be received upon testing. I don't know. it seems like, because generally speaking, if you you go out of the country, you come back, they advise a 2-week quarantine period.
Yeah.
Or if they think you've been exposed, 2 weeks.
Yeah, my parents are off their quarantine tomorrow. I get to see my parents again.
Yeah. So for them to say, okay, we're going to test everybody. If everybody's tests come back negative, cool, we're in the clear.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got another week, probably, to be sure of that.
Yeah.
And then just continue the taping schedule as if they're completely in the clear. Again, it's incredibly short-sighted, and you run the risk of putting people in harm's way.
Yeah.
Luis Dangor tweeted as well, quote, "Don't be shocked if we see more talent pulling out of the shows, and you know what? I don't blame them."
Yeah, that was in response to somebody mentioning this is why Roman Reigns left, right on the verge of WrestleMania happening, and that's what Luis's response was. So yeah, this is obviously still a developing story. We will see what happens later on. Yeah.
So we want to hope that WWE is approaching things the right way.
Yeah. I would highly suggest following John Alba on Twitter.
Yes.
And Luis Dangor on Twitter also.
Yeah.
And of course, our good friend Tom Cullihue.
Yes. John Alba's been on top of a lot of this stuff throughout the.
Also, on the brighter side of things, so we were sort of concerned, of course, with Paul Heyman being out as executive director of Raw. That might hurt the chances of some young talent getting pushed. Well, one particular young talent, Angel Garza, we might not have to worry about him because Alex McCarthy of Talk Sport is reporting that, quote, Angel Garza is the latest star to become a favorite of Vince McMahon, and sources tell Talk Sport McMahon has even referred to him as a young Eddie Guerrero. He's not the first to make that comparison, Larson. I think you and I both think that he's absolutely terrific, and
he's fantastic, man.
At such a young age, he's got all the potential in the world to do great things.
Yeah,
so
27 years old. That's it. So he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. So yeah, there you go. That's it for News Brief today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with more stuff, and then if Friendo Club TV, we got Ask Stephen Larson coming up today.
We do.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.